Our next guest for the program today, as we get back to our coverage of the war itself, is Glenn Ignacio, the retired Air Force Special Operations Major. And Major Ignacio, it's good to see you again. I think, the war resuming with the truce ending is the story of the day. What would you say about the way Israel's going about this? I think the last conversation we had, we were talking about the United States urging Israel to change course if it did go back to fighting, not operate the same way in the southern part of Gaza as it has in the north. Today we hear of heavy bombardment in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. What would you say about it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There was approximately 200 airstrikes that were documented from Israel striking within Gaza. There was also 50 plus rockets from Hamas firing into Israel. So one of the things we did talk about the other day was how they're going to be much more precise and hopefully restrained. I mean, that was the emphasis on the IDF to continue this operation. The difficult part is a lot of the infrastructure of Hamas, which is really what's going to be destroyed, is so tightly intertwined with hospitals and, as we've seen in the past, and apartment buildings. So those strikes are rather intense. But the biggest thing is to make sure that it doesn't harm any of the humanitarian aid that comes in when that hopefully will start again.
Yeah, that was the issue. Bring up our maps as you look at some of those strikes from the IDF they put out of their video from earlier today. On the map that we have here, you see the Rafah crossing in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, which we talked about so much there. I'm highlighting it between Egypt and Gaza, where that aid, I believe for the time being, is not flowing like it was. To your point, the last few days, some of the heavy bombardment today has been in this area, Khan Yunis, in the southern part of Gaza. And we shipped to this other map. We showed this last hour at some of the evacuation zones. They were dropping these leaflets telling people to move further south, but there'd be a QR code on it. And as I zoom further in on this, you'd get a number on one of these zones and basically be told, all right, this zone number, whatever the number might be, is safer than the other zone, and you're told to go to that place. Is this a sustainable strategy? I mean, I understand as you look at somebody looking at their phone in Khan Yunis earlier, is this a sustainable strategy for Israel to be able to carry out a war at this scale, doing it like this?
I mean, I think it's going to be very difficult, and collateral damage is going to occur. I mean, this is something that's so difficult with such a densely populated area within that small strip of Gaza. So, dropping leaflets or notification is appropriate, and that's something that should be done by the IDF and actually anybody in conflict to get the civilians out of that area. But the interesting part too is, a lot of this communication has been jammed and there's problems. So, getting access to a QR code may be a little difficult on a phone, but the leaflets would be something that's more appropriate. So it's tough to manage this, and it always has been. But whatever can be done to minimize collateral damage and to focus directly on Hamas is really what the IDF has to do. And it is so difficult in such a condensed, difficult, and complex operation.
The other thing going on today, separate from all of this, has been some reporting here in the United States. I think it's getting a lot of attention around the world. That New York Times story that came out last night. We'll put up the headline once again from the Times saying that Israel knew Hamas's attack plan more than a year ago. And basically, hey, some people in Israeli intelligence had information about what Hamas wanted to do and didn't believe that they could do it. What was your reaction upon seeing that?
Unfortunately, it reminded me of our 9/11, which they're saying that's what was Israel's experience. And October 7th was, their 9/11, and the breakdown in intelligence. Now, historically, Hamas's operations has been very poor. I mean, it's almost like putting a high school football team into the NFL. They don't execute well. They're not going to execute well. They're not going to be successful. That's the way they've been in the past. So their operation on October 7th was so pristine and so calculated and correct that the training was unbelievable for at least a year. So the IDF and Israel as a general and the intelligence community did not believe that they were going to be able to execute something so complex and so coordinated as they did. They just did not believe that they had the capability. And unfortunately, they did.
The second piece that I thought caught a lot of people's attention came in the Wall Street Journal, and the headline in the Journal was that Israel plans to kill Hamas leaders around the world after the war, talking about how the spy agencies have long targeted assassinations. Mossad in Israel has been known for this. So when I saw this, I said, well, maybe this isn't much of a change from what we've seen in the past. But this isn't only source reporting from the Journal. The leaders in Israel have been quite public about this, which is kind of interesting. They've been going out in public, say, hey, wherever you are, we're going to come and get you. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that they've done. They've done it preemptively. They've attacked and taken out certain key individuals that would have given Iran a nuclear capability in the past and assassinated them in different parts of the world. And this is something that they've actually highlighted pretty well. Is, you have four leadership individuals within the Qatar area and the Persian Gulf area, excuse me, is that they're four billionaires. So it's interesting you have
Yeah.
four billionaires running Hamas, but I could see that those are going to be targets, or anybody else that they identified that were key in October 7th, or are key positions for logistics and or funding of Hamas. They're going to break down the infrastructure of Hamas, and that's not just physically, that's financially, that's in any way that they can psychologically as well.
Yep, Major Glenn Ignacio with us today. Always appreciate your insight and analysis. Thank you, sir.